The worst practice was I'm going to dive with sharks with no cage and covered in blood or with open wounds, and I'm going to get eaten. It's like, okay, after someone did that 5 or 10 times, a best practice was developed of like, okay, maybe we should put a cage around them or something. Right. So like the development of this experience does matter, and a kid coming out of school going, I know better than the industry is like useful for a certain extent because it's disruptive, but like there actually has to be this confidence measured with a little bit of humility about like the world's a big place 100%. I have not experienced yet.
Yeah. Aaron, welcome to the United States of America. I've heard some good stuff.
Yes.
You are now a citizen.
I'm finally a citizen. That's
after 2 decades of trying.
Yeah.
So
20 years.
If nothing else, we have to cheers, my friend.
Thank you very much. I love America.
You came to the States from London to Alabama.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me that cultural shift that like from London that we all see in movies with Big Ben and everyone talking a certain way.
I also like to live dangerously.
Sure.
To Alabama, which we've also seen portrayed cinematically. So
where everyone talks a certain way too.
Where everyone talks a certain way.
Yeah.
They took our job!
It got dropped on us at Christmas 1999 that we were gonna move somewhere in the States to follow my dad's book of business, and it was like, do you want to go to Denver, Seattle, New York, or Mobile, Alabama? And my dad really, really pushed Mobile, Alabama. But it was 99% white, Christian, and very, very different, right? It's like, I also showed up in 1999, which was like the peak of Austin Powers. And so I went from an all boys school where I was socially awkward, like kind of a nobody, to all of a sudden being the only English person for hundreds of miles.
So you were Austin Powers.
And I was Austin Powers, and I was asked to do yeah, baby, yeah, and all that kind of stuff for every day, all day.
I can see that also, because I would do the same thing if I had an English friend or something in high school.
I was basically a zoo animal to people. The good thing about it was mostly really good-looking, like blonde, tanned women that I'd never interacted with before in England because I went to an all-boys school.
Right.
So I had no social interactions with
that was your
women.
icebreaker. That was your entryway into
and this was like
communicating with
the first time I'd ever really interacted with women was this, and it was great.
And it was more attention than you probably wanted because you weren't like mentally ready for such things.
Right. I actually look at that kind of weird social moment as the emergence of my kind of self-confidence and stuff. So my private school in England was pretty much everyone training to go into be law or banking. And so I was like, I don't want to do any of that, so I'm going to do art. And and so my parents were really supportive of that, which like they were a little bit like, I think, resigned to it. So I went to Savannah College of Art and Design.
What was amazing was I was in the same place. I'm like, I'm going to go to NC State. I'm going to go to Chapel Hill. I'm going to go to App State with my friends.
Yeah, my friends went there.
And we're going to party, have a good time, and I'm going to learn whatever, and I'm going to figure it out as I go. Mom found SCAD, and I'm like, what the hell is SCAD? It's an art school, a design school? Okay, whatever, we'll go take a look. And they were like, let's make a trip out of it. Let's go to Savannah, hang out. And I'm 17 or whatever at the time, and I'm thinking about whatever else I'm thinking about, not years ahead, right? And my parents are like, this is probably happening. And then Bob Fee, who we shared at SCAD in the industrial design program, was at the old ID building and gave me a tour and showed me everything there was at the ID building. And I was like, I'm kind of in, this is it. This is my artistic outlet. And there's careers here. Not the starving artist thing is gone.
Yeah, sure.
Like they're like, well, you're planning for a job here.
Yeah, you went to art school, which was generally like you could be a painter or a creative writing guy and spend a couple $100,000 on school fees and probably going to end up being a starving artist.
Right.
Or you could go to design programs, which were like the application of artistic talent to a field of like film and television or fashion or industrial design. And that was super interesting because it wasn't just, people were just going to draw and sell their drawings. It was using that talent in the forces of like business, which was kind of interesting.
To create something that's genuinely new,
you have to start again.
There's tension and conflict within the faculty body too, right? Like there were people that were devout, process-heavy people that were like, no, the only thing that really matters is we teach these kids how to be methodical about things and approach it. And then the other half of the faculty were like, no, that's all nonsense because they don't have to do process and process books and process documentation in the real world. They only have to create beautiful, sexy shit. Right? And so we judge them on the output. We don't judge them on the journey that took them there. And so that was like a real like schism in the faculty body about like who believed what. So I think the lesson I got out of that was it's important to be rigorous and methodical and like apply time. It's like anything, like you create like a diamond, right? Like it's time and pressure. And it's like time and pressure create something and it might destroy the thing or it might create something fantastic. And so the idea of this process was the application of time and intent again and again and again to create something versus the sexy output people were like, let's just create something sexy. I'm gonna go away, I'm gonna sketch something overnight and then I'm gonna render it, I'm gonna make it. And look, it's beautiful. And I was like, yeah, but there's no like intellectualism behind it. There's no thought. Like, why did you do it? It's like, I just felt it. And I was like, the feeling is a big part of design, right? Motion and all that stuff, like being imbued in everything. But like, in the real world, you have to explain stuff to people, right? You have to get people on board. And so in college, you're insulated from what's going on in the rest of the world, right? And so the rest of the world in 2007 was like, the economy was just starting to like wobble really heavily. But like we didn't know anything about that, right? Because we're senior in college, we're about to go find jobs. And so I interviewed with a handful of places, like a couple tech companies, but I wasn't really feeling that. Because in college, my mind, it was like software design, this idea of interaction design, experience design. And I retained the idea of doing architecture a lot. I was like, I really want to go back to doing that, even though I wasn't trained to do it. And so I was in a job fair at SCAD, and there were all these companies I could work for, like Caterpillar, like software companies. And then Genza was over there. Genza's like the largest architecture interior design company in the world. There are like thousands and thousands of people. And I get in line for the job fair for my quick interview, and it's full of interior design and architecture students. And a girl I knew behind me was like, what are you doing in this line? You're not architecture, you're industrial design. I was like, yeah, I'm pretty sure I could do this. She's like, no, there's absolutely no way you can do this at all. Like, you should just leave this line and go, so there's no way you can do this. And I was the only person hired by Genza that year from SCAD.
Oh shit! Oh shit!
Moved to DC. I was on like $40,000 a year in a super expensive city. I could barely kind of make ends meet. I was eating 7-Eleven hot dogs every day for like food. And
or whatever that is.
And yeah, if food. And that was again 2007, so everything was starting to like wobble a bit. And I'm there trying to do human-centered design, like convincing architects to go like talk to people. Because like architecture generally is about designing kind of phalluses on the skyline, right? Like these big like monuments to technology and ability, not thinking about the humans on the inside. And I'd come from a school where my entire process hammered into me was about human-centered design and humans first. And so I went there to be like, I can bring some of this thinking to this company. And they were really didn't know how to use it, but they're like, why don't we just like fly you around to places that we're pitching work to, and you can study it and make like customer journey maps and make some kind of understanding that we can then use to sell the project and give to our designers to build something off of. I had just done a speaking engagement in Miami, and I met my old professor from SCAD, who was currently working at a design company I'd always wanted to work for called Frog Design in Austin. And he was like, we've just signed 2 giant clients. How about, and I remember his quote was like, how about you come down and start doing work that means something? And
that will mean something.
And so this was November 2009. March 2010, March 2010, I started working there. And Genza was great. I got some really, really interesting things out of it. Like this idea of like, they didn't know what to do with me, so I had to like own my path. And I remember 6 months in, being a person with a background that they'd never experienced before, they basically bought me because they thought I was somewhat valuable. They'll find a value in me. And I basically called my bosses into the room. I was like, this is what I can do. This is what I think I can do for the business. And they were like, great. Being brave enough to assert yourself as a junior kid in a room full of people that have been in this company for 10, 20 years to go, I can do that.
Right. And I think, again, I go back to SCAD, and I have to go back to SCAD because of the tools that they gave us. We came out arrogant little assholes.
Yeah.
And that's not saying that we thought we knew more than we did, but there were capabilities, especially earlier in our careers, where we saw like our managers and the people above us were like, we've done these things. We can problem solve this way. We see them doing what we're doing. We've done this.
Yep.
We got this. So I think that confidence you're talking about, or that willingness to do these things, was a comfort level that you gained.
The counterpoint to that, though, is now I am a seasoned, experienced design person. A student coming out of college telling me that he knows as much as I do.
Yeah,
I'm gonna tell him to shut up. Right? They don't.
Shut up.
Right? Like there's, but the thing is that is like they actually might have better skills and craft than I do. It might be faster, they might be better, I might have more beauty than I can produce, but it's the thing that you develop that you can't articulate really over the course of experience is the pattern recognition, right? Of, okay, I've seen this kind of problem before, chances are it's going to be this thing. There's a thing in like Star Trek where they show up and then there's a ship they don't recognize and the computer goes like beep, 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 like
Tactical analysis, Mr. Wolf.
the ship. We reckon like it's this kind of ship, right?
Scans
like,
the ship.
Scans the ship and like figures out which one it is. It's like, that's what happens with us too, right? We get a new client that's got a problem, like, yeah, actually, I've pretty much done like 3 projects kind of just like this. So I'm not uncomfortable with this. I've got ideas of best practices just from my own experience of how to use this. And like younger kids have got the brute force of craft, but they don't have this calmness about that comes through the pattern recognition that happens. But yeah, I do think about that. The skill set that came from SCAD was like the confidence to, and the idea is like confidence meets idealism, right? Like we're idealistically taught that design can change everything, which I actually like sort of disagree with pretty fundamentally now. Like I think design has a place, but it isn't like this world-beating, like you can't put me in a room with, I don't know, like the prime ministers and power brokers and like, I will be equal on the power stakes with them.
Yeah, design thinking
like,
will solve your problems.
I can be an advisor, I can represent humans, but like design thinking isn't the silver bullet that everyone was we were taught it to be.
It is for contextual things, but yes.
So I think that's kind of interesting to me. So that was really, again, there was like that lesson. It was like the willingness to like throw myself at stuff, which carried on to Frog and has carried on forever. Is like I generally don't turn down a project unless there's like a really hard technical constraint that I'm like, I don't speak like JavaScript, right? I don't speak C++, I don't speak these languages, like Ruby, I don't know, I can't do that. Like there's a limitation there. But if it's a conceptual project, even if it's in a different kind of space, I'm like, it's fine.
And that says a lot about the person as well, because I'm giving a lot of credit to SCAD, and it is justified, but that also speaks a lot about who you are and the people that do similar things. That go out of their way and out of their comfort zone, because it's like, why not? Yeah. It's like, there's regret, and like, why didn't I do this thing? Yeah, I could have done this, why didn't I?
There's a really good point there about like, humans are, like, we exist for like an unknown purpose, right? But like all I can worry about in my own purpose is like what I experience in life. And so I like to term myself like a bit of an experience, like an experience sort of Epicurean. Right. It's like if there's a new thing that's somewhere within my reach, I'm probably going to go try that.
There's a hunger.
Do it because I don't know. It could be awesome. It could be a disaster, but at least I can say I did it.
Here's Lizzie Dugan.
We now live in a world that we can take these risks, these comfortable risks,
because
corporate risks.
Taking it back to work is like, because like it's a best practice. The worst practice was I'm going to dive with sharks with no cage and covered in blood or with open wounds, and I'm going to get eaten. It's like, okay, after someone did that 5 or 10 times, a best practice was developed of like, okay, maybe we should put a cage around them or something. So like the development of this experience does matter, and a kid coming out of school going, I know better than the industry is like, useful for a certain extent because it's disruptive, but like there actually has to be this confidence measured with a little bit of humility about like 100%. The world's a big place 100%. I have not experienced yet. So that means the designer's role takes on this idea of like you don't have true power, you have advisement. And you have you're basically just crafting a series of recommendations that goes up to the decision maker, and as long as that decision maker chooses or doesn't choose, that's fine. But if you can like accept that that's the role, is like we're all in this business to just make recommendations. and we make recommendations to other people, and if they want to act on them, that's fine. That actually like alleviates a huge amount of stress and pressure.
Yeah.
And so this idea that like, you know, I'm just making recommendations. The other kind of, and that's this sort of like, you could argue like this sort of compromising diplomat that weaves a path through life going, I'm recommending things to you, but it's your decision, you want to do this, versus this like pioneering, uncompromising artist designer. And like, I know a handful of people that are these artist designers, and I respect them a lot, but not many of them are successful. Either through the measurement of success is like personal, financial, or career success, or impact. There are people that are just like, I need to make a thing because it's in my head.
Right.
And they've started businesses and they've all failed because they can't work with the other people that might help try and bump the vision one way or another. They're uncompromising, they clear them up, they clear the path. And so they're trying to be designers, but they're really artists, right? Because like an artist can be whatever he wants, right? That you just express,
Pretty
you
much.
let it speak.
Any of that? I'd rather...
Rather what?
I'd rather just sing.
Stop that.
Yep.
A designer has to operate with people and has to build an engine of a business, and like, it's very, very different. And so this idea of being a uncompromising artist designer or this compromising diplomat, like I respect these artist people, but like I'm definitely more of this compromising diplomat. It's like I can totally operate here and I'm fine with it because I actually think there is where the true influence lies. Like there's a lot more of these people that make waves in the world. There's a lot more of these artist designers that like either have zero impact or become like starring artists in the world. Right? The success stories there are the bigger success stories that everyone latches onto.
Right.
There's so many people that try and be this like asshole like conflict magnet because like you disagree with me, well then I'm not gonna listen to you. I'm doing my own thing. It's like, well now I'm the power of one. Whereas if I'd have listened to you and brought you into the process, there was two of us. And if I listen to you and bring you in the process, three of it, like we can force multiply our success. So yeah, there's like that thinks about me a little bit of like the career I've gone on and like when was I this kind of sort of blinders on dominant person that was ignoring everyone and uncompromising, and how did it normally work out? I was like, generally didn't normally work out very well. I moved to Frog in 2010 with my old college professor. They just signed 2 big accounts and they were like, we need a whole bunch of people. And so he reached out to a whole bunch of his students that he taught and was like, how about you guys come work for us because I can trust your quality. And so I moved to Frog along with 6 or 7 of the kids that I was either really, really close friends with or I graduated with.
Yeah, a bunch of SCAD kids.
Right, a bunch of SCAD kids. And so that was a transition for me away from doing architecture interior stuff and doing proper software design, right? This is proper, like, Frog is a hardcore, really famous global design consultancy, and it focuses on like upstream things, right? So we do some software design, but we generally don't build stuff. It's all like designing documentation for the client to go build, helping them come up with crazy strategic projects. It was a dream job. A friend called Jason Ballard called me, who ran a company at the time in Austin, a startup called Treehouse, and was like, hey, I'm gonna raise money for a second round of expansion, but I need a vision to raise money against. And so can you come and build a vision and then we'll do something. And so I did a 10-week project and built this crazy vision of Treehouse 2.0, which is a home improvement retail services company. And he then went away, sold the business. I had my kid with my wife. And after a couple months of sort of paternity leave, he came back and was like, hey, so now I've got money. Do you want to come on board and build this? This will be kind of fun. And I was like, you know what? Yeah, I got nothing to lose, really. Right, money's about the same. It's like there's some equity there that could be profitable. And startups are crazy. So I'm going to go do that. So I joined the team as the vice president of creative and was a crazy roller coaster. We had like, I don't know, we had like 10 and 15 million bucks to open a couple of stores, but it was like a retail business. But the vision I had created was like not a retail business, it was like a services company, tech powered. And it was the first time I'd really encountered a thing where like coming in as a design leader, I was like, I can do this.
Well, Aaron, you got a little a little loud in there.
Oh.
So we had to come out here to this nice Austin cool weather.
Yeah. We traded a concert hall for a sauna. It's great.
Yeah, it's like 110 degrees. You know, I feel like, you know, we need to exfoliate a little
Yeah,
bit.
great.
Anyways, all right, so we are transitioning to Treehouse in your world.
Yeah.
That was a really cool transition, by the way. Your glasses, like, I'm gonna talk now.
Own the conversation. So yeah, I started working for a startup, right? So I had met the CEO. We'd done a consulting project to help him with a playbook to go raise money for the second expansion of the business. And he came back from fundraising and was like, well, do you want to just come do this? I was like, well, let me talk to my wife a little bit, because that seems crazy. Like, startups are notoriously nuts.
Yep.
And decided to work out basically this agreement with my wife that's like, I get to go do consulting or freelance or like flexible stuff that might be more of a moonshot for the family, right? Startups with equity, and she has the stable corporate gig.
Right.
And so then after 5 or 10 years, it flips and I do the stable corporate gig. So I decided to do startup, and it was great. There's like equity on the line, which was kind of interesting. Treehouse is a sustainable home improvement company, or I say it was a sustainable home improvement company. And so everything Home Depot offered, we offered, but it was the healthier, more environmentally friendly version of that, right? Paint that didn't VOC and off gas and things. And it was great. Super missional company. Every single person in the business cared. Was like really emotionally invested in it. And that was one of the reasons I was attracted to it. It's like a business where literally every person is like motivated by the same thing. It's like, and the idea that this business must expand and must be successful in order for humans and the earth to like be a better place.
Right.
And it was really great. And I was there for 3 years. And I think the interesting thing about that is like had a real transition year to year. It's like the first year was super stressful and crazy, right? I came as this like designer who came from a big shot design consultancy, thought I knew what I was doing. I was like, yeah, I can change business. Like I've been told my entire career, I can change business. And got a super powerful CEO. We're in a startup, so it's like there's not a lot of time for thinking and being introspective. It's like, we have an idea, go do it. Like the idea of going from a consultancy where everything was belabored and like almost academic, but would stay in a presentation on an executive's desk and never get built, going to a startup where it was like, on a Monday, we decide we need to change something. By Friday, we've designed it and built it. The next Friday, we're seeing measurement change, right? So like we have 2-3 week cycles, which is like the idea of having real impact is like you are like right on the front lines. You go build a thing and go see if it changes stuff. And so understanding that like my decisions were having that kind of also cause and effect was super stressful.
And you were also being presented with challenges that you had bluntly zero experience in. Like, hey, build a store in Dallas. Go.
Yeah.
You're like,
and they were like, you work for an architecture firm? I was like, yeah, in like brand design and consulting, not like commercial building design. They're like, okay, well, we need 2 retail stores in like 2 years. Go figure out a budget. How much is it going to cost? And manage that budget and build it. Like, okay, I'll do that.
And you just figure shit out.
Right. And so I came in as a VP of Creative to do the digital transformation of this business to become a services company. But I also then took on basically marketing asset creation. So I built a team underneath me that could handle just basic graphic design, marketing stuff, a digital designer do digital services stuff, and then a store designer who could do store design. But I was also doing construction management, which is like nothing I had any experience doing, and it's super freaking hard.
Right.
And so there's all of us on the leadership team that were like extremely well-intentioned, but not very experienced at all. And the business eventually failed. Like I left the business after 3 years, and the business then folded fully like 7-8 months later. Lot of heart and sweat and tears of my own 3 years in it, but also like the CEOs and founders like been doing it for 8-9 years before it folded, and that was hard. After a year of operating in that way, which is super stressful, you kind of, I joke that it's almost like I don't know, it's almost like AA, right? The acceptance is the first step to like treatment, right? And it's like okay, the first year was super stressful, and then the second year was accepting that like this situation's the situation. Do I want to be on board for it, or do I not want to be on board for it?
Yeah.
I was like, no, I'm gonna, in my like, what I said earlier about like being an Epicurean for experiences, I was like, I'm probably not gonna get an opportunity to like this again. I was like, I could try this for 3 months, and that became 6 months, and that became 12 months, right? I was like, let's see how it goes. And my wife jokes with me that like Treehouse is one of the best things that happened to me because I was so stressed and it was such a horrible experience the first year that I hid very well from the people who I managed, right? Because your job as a leader is to also be a shield for them.
Come and get them!
There's a really interesting Harvard Business Review article about monkeys, and it's called like it's called something about like carrying other people's monkeys, basically.
Okay.
And the idea is I have my own monkeys in my own role that are difficult, and a monkey is a challenge or something that's stressing me out, or something that's like I don't know how I'm going to deal with it. And so other people wander through my professional life with their own monkeys. You might be the head of marketing, and we go hang out at the water cooler or lunch one day, and you're like, I don't know how to do this and this thing and this thing. And I go, because I'm an eager beaver, right? And I think I can solve things. I go, well, I can help you with that. Well, that means I'm actually investing 2 to 5 hours of my week to help you fix that.
Right.
Well, that's 2 to 5 hours of my week I'm not investing in my own stuff. That could destabilize my own stuff. And so the idea of like understanding your scope and understanding your lane means you must not take on the monkeys of other people, because like, again, go back to the whole like you can't throw stones in glass houses cliche. Like if you're like, you can't go around fixing other people's stuff if your own foundation is going to then start disappearing. And so that was something in the last year. We're constantly having stuff flare up, and me and the COO of the first year of Treehouse would have gone, yeah, let's CEO, that's such a great idea. Let's go do that.
Right.
The third year version of us is like, no.
How about new?
So that was tricky, and we realized we were constantly chasing ourselves. We weren't performing the way we were hoping to perform, and we had to develop what was called a red button plan, just in case things were going to start like getting a little bit more hard.
Red button meaning
red
it's
button
just
plan
like,
was like everyone evaluate your organization, and you have to cut 10 to 20% of your people. We hope to never have to do the red button plan, but like, here, what would you do if you were forced to do it? The CEO and the board were like, if you were forced to do it, what would you do?
Right.
Like, okay. And so we all developed a red button plan. In the meantime, I went away and had a second child, like on paternity leave with my wife. And I got called in one day on the phone and was like, yeah, we have to execute the red button plan. You're on paternity leave still, so you don't have to come in and do this if you don't want to. And I was like, there's no way you're firing my people.
Right.
I have to fire my people.
Yeah.
And so I came in for the week, and that entire week I spent basically, everyone thought it was really, all my team were like, something's really weird that you've come back from maternity leave.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, I just missed you guys. Right? And I was like doing stuff. I was like, yeah, I mean, she's fine. I'm gonna go change my paternity management. Like, I just want to be here.
Right.
And that entire week, all I was doing was trying to convince the board of how I could keep my team, because we were 6 months out from opening the third store.
Yeah.
And if my team basically was decimated, like there's no one to do the store, right? There would be no one to do it.
Right.
And I was like, how about you don't pay me for 6 months, and you use my salary and you give it to them, and then in 6 months' time, you pay me, write me a check, or you give me more equity or something like that. Like we just figure things out. And everyone was like, no, just rip the Band-Aid off. They've got to go. Like that was your plan. I was like, okay. And so we did that. We had one day, which was this awful day at Treehouse in Austin, where almost half the back of house was let go, and it was like really. Yeah, there's people that we built this familial atmosphere, right? The whole business's premise was like, we are here together because we are all a tribe of people that care about the planet.
Right.
And like, I love you as a brother, and I love you as a sister, like you're my people.
Right.
And then this corporate mode set in where we were like,
It trumps.
you're not here, sorry.
Yeah.
This is your last day.
Yeah.
And it sucks. And no one expected it except for the executive team that could kind of see things that might be coming. And so everyone who was let go banded together in the parking lot and was crying and was angry. stuff, and we dealt with the fallout for that for a long time.
How did you deal with it?
It was really hard, and I because I knew about it could be coming for a few weeks before. Like, I'd rationalized it in my head, but I really didn't like the idea that I was being forced to like let my team go for money when I knew to save money when I knew it was going to cost us more money in the development of the next store, because I've still got to go out and buy contractors.
Sure.
I've got to buy consultants to do this now, which costs twice as much as this girl who's making, I don't know, $37,000. It costs us in the grand scheme of our business nothing.
Yeah.
And I've now got to go buy a contractor that's going to cost 60. I was like, this doesn't make sense. And the board's just like, it's how it is. It's like, okay. So like I was pretty angry. And I almost left the company because of it. I was pretty heavily persuaded to stay, at least through the opening of the next store. But yeah, that was a pretty difficult time. And we closed the Austin store, which I knew was on the cards, but was really hard. But again, that was a way to buy the business time so it could focus on the 2 stores in Dallas, which were performing pretty decently. And it was just like this idea of like, you're constantly chasing though. It's like everyone, like the last year of the business was really tough to do anything new or innovative that you thought was a positive to the company, because we were just chasing ourselves, trying to like keep our head above water. And then as a leader in that business, behind the scenes, there's metrics and numbers and things that could be improved, but you've got to like maintain a facade for your team, right? Like, it's really important that the idea of failure doesn't spread, because it's a virus. And like, if we start showing to the team that we had doubts about the future of the business, or we had issues with it, they would also have doubts and issues, and they might leave. And if they left, then it undermines the entire business, because we can't replace them. And I was very, very open with my team about like, there are things we need to work on, but like I was very careful about like not spreading fear.
But Treehouse closed shop and it failed.
Yeah.
And it just came down to a numbers game.
It was a really important business, because like we are surrounded, like your home is the most toxic environment you ever encounter, and the home building industry is the #1 contributor to landfills. And it was like, this business was set up to attack both those problems, but it's like, without the underlying business engine, philosophy and desire don't matter. And like we could have gone about this business and set up a philanthropy that attacked landfills or attacked home toxicity, but there's no motivator in like humanity that's greater than money and capitalism, right? So like, if you can take a good idea, a force for good, and monetize it with capitalism, then you can incentivize other people getting behind it, and you can make it a movement. Whereas like, philanthropies and philosophies are limited because they don't have a ceiling. They have a ceiling, whereas like a business generally doesn't have a ceiling, as long as it's incentivized the right way. If I can incentivize like housing for homeless people, then like, and people are going to get an ROI, then it's a force for change. People get their money back, and that's great. So that's one of the things I'm constantly looking for, is like businesses that are like are social forces for social good, but are a business. Right. The thing for me is like, it was a failure. Like, the business failed, and it's important for me as one of the 3 leaders of the business at the moment it failed to own the failure. Right. Like, I talked to the former COO, and I talked to the former CEO, and between the 3 of us, we have varying elements that we own the failure. Like, one of the guys is like, it wasn't really our fault. There were circumstances. And I'm like, no, it was really our fault. Like, we were steering the ship at that moment, and we knew these other forces. And like, we still chose to do this, or we still chose to do this. And it's not that we purposefully killed the company. Of course we didn't. But like, could it have been better in different hands? I don't know. But like, we have to take ownership of the fact that like, we are responsible for that. And we were lucky enough, because we were in a position either where we had other opportunities afterwards and things, but there are people beneath us that are still struggling to find jobs. And like, that is a responsibility and a thing that I still think about.
Segueing into kind of wrapping this up, man.
Yeah.
What is driving your creative juices. What is design doing right now that you see happening in the next 5 years? That's like, this is where things are going.
The craft of design is going to get more and more automated.
Yeah. What excites you about that?
What excites me about that is, I feel like I am lucky because I have already proven a skill set of working with the upstream stuff.
Right.
And I can be in those rooms with people, and I can operate diplomatically and do that. It's like, I feel like I'm lucky that I've already got like a portfolio that I can do that. If I was a craftsman right now, I would be worried.
Yeah.
Because I think the craftsmen are going to be coming under pressure, and that either is pressure from like pricing so they make less, or they're just going to be, there's going to be some software release in 5 to 10 years that just means that 30% of them aren't needed anymore.
Right.
So I don't know, like, it's a double-edged sword, right? Like, I'm very on the fence about like automation being a good or bad thing. Like, I'm generally a globalist by nature, and like, I'm really excited about the future of technology and automation efficiency and speed and things that we can produce. But there's a real human cost to all of that. And I just finished a research project about workers that are in the crosshairs of automation. And generally people aren't very scared of it. Like all these truck drivers that are going to get displaced by automated trucking, like no one's worried about it because they're like, yeah, I've been hustling my entire life. We'll just keep hustling.
Right.
So yeah, it doesn't answer your question, but like I'm excited because I think on a higher level, I'm excited about the future of people getting displaced by automation because I believe in a very romantic way that like we're not here to work. Like as humans, we're not here to like fucking like slave away and bang hammers into things and build shit. Let fucking robots do that. We're here as like, we have all this expression and emotion within us that like doesn't get expressed and gets suppressed by generally being in business.
Sure.
And being in the corporate world. So like by freeing us from having to worry about that, we get to be more expressive, right? We get to do things. We get to explore the world. We get to be artists. We get to be poets. We get all these things. And you could argue how many poets does the world need? But like
7.
You get right.
I don't know.
You get to do things that aren't drudgery.
I mean,
so that future is super romantic, right? The idea of like we get to do all these things and free humanity from the slave, like kind of the slavery of work. But like to get to that point, like there's so much strife and conflict that we have to navigate through. Right, like it's not going to be an easy transition.
Yeah,
and that's not a threat to us, but like that is like there's a lot of suffering to get to that point, right? And I think it's a relatively beautiful point of enlightenment, but I don't know how to pick a path through that. So it's actually something that me and my wife talk about a little bit. Is like how do you build? Because we have 2 kids, right? So like how do we set the kids up for as much success as possible to navigate something like that, right? So like. There's 2 kinds of people in the future probably. There's the people that like are told what to do by machines and the people that tell machines what to do.
Right.
And there's probably fewer people that tell machines what to do than there are being told to do machines. How do you prepare the kids to do that, right? Like what is that? So we've talked a little bit about critical thinking and schooling and stuff, but it weighs on us a little bit of like, we have control over the path of someone, and that someone is not just ourselves, right? How do you place them on the right path?
Well, Aaron, man, this was an incredible conversation. Thank you so much for being here, my friend.
Sure. I enjoyed sweating with you.
I know. Got a little toasty out here today.
It's all right.
It's Friends and allies.
It's really nice here.
Friends and allies, come get some delightful beverages.
It's very good beer.
We're tapped out.
It was better when it was colder, but it's still good.
Well, here's some. Here. Let me give you some more warm beer. There you go.